Welcome to my channel. Have you ever felt your heart race, your voice freeze, and your mind go blank when you try to speak English in front of others? You are not alone. I've been there, many times. But today, I want to show you something different. Not fear, but courage. In this video, I'll share how I went from shaking in front of small groups to speaking in full sentences with joy and confidence, step by step, word by word. So if you've ever been scared to speak English in front of people, stay with me. This story might change how you feel, and maybe it will help you speak, not with fear, but with pride. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The first time I froze on stage. I still remember the room. White walls, a buzzing fan, 30 faces. My English teacher stood near the blackboard, smiling kindly, holding a small book. She said my name. "Please come and read this paragraph." My heart dropped. My hands felt cold. I stood up slowly. I could hear my own footsteps as I walked to the front. The book looked heavy in her hands, but when she passed it to me, it felt even heavier in mine. I looked at the page. The words were simple. I knew them yesterday. I knew them last night when I practiced at home. But now, they were not words. They were shapes. They were clouds. They were not clear. My mouth went dry. I swallowed. Nothing changed. I could feel everyone looking at me, waiting, watching. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to sit down. I wanted to say, "Not today. Maybe tomorrow." But I stayed. I held the book. I breathed in. I tried to find one word I could say. Just one. I opened my mouth. No sound came. My head was loud, but my voice was quiet. I thought, they will laugh. They will judge me. They will think I am stupid. My teacher didn't rush me. She just waited. That made it both easier and harder. Easier because she was kind. Harder because I had no excuse. The silence was long. It felt like a whole day, but it was only a few seconds. Then I whispered the first word. It came out weak, like a small child. I said the second word. It was a little stronger. I looked at the sentence again. I could see letters now. I could see meaning. The fear was still there, sitting in my chest. But I had started, and starting is a kind of power. I read the first sentence slowly. My voice shook. Someone coughed. Someone turned a page. Someone looked bored. My hands were shaking, and I tried to hide it by holding the book tight. I made a mistake on one word. I said it wrong. I corrected it. My face felt hot, but I kept going. My teacher nodded softly as if to say, "Good, keep going." I did. I read another sentence and another. My voice was not strong, but it was real. The paragraph was not long, but to me it felt like a mountain. I climbed it word by word, breath by breath, while every eye in the room stayed like a light on my face. Somewhere in the middle, I wanted to stop again. The fear came back like a wave. I thought, why am I doing this? I am not ready. But another voice inside me said, "You are already here. Just finish." That voice was small, but it was brave. I listened to it. I kept going. At the last line, I decided to read a little clearer. I lifted my head. I tried to make my voice sound like I believed it. The final full stop felt like peace. I closed the book. The room was quiet for 1 second. My heart was still racing, and then, from somewhere on the left side of the room, I heard it. One clap. Just one. It was small. But it was for me. Then a few more students clapped too. Not loud, not long, but enough. Enough to tell me something important. I did not die. I did not fail. I did not break. I spoke. I finished. I stood there and survived the thing I was most afraid of. That small sound, the first clap, was like a light in a dark room. It was a signal, a message. It told me, maybe I am not as weak as I think. Maybe I am more ready than I feel. Maybe fear is loud, but it is not the truth. I walked back to my seat slowly. My legs felt strange, like they were not mine. I sat down and tried to smile, but my face couldn't move. I felt embarrassed and proud at the same time. My friend whispered, "Good job." I nodded, still breathing fast. My teacher said, "Thank you." Her voice was calm, warm. She didn't say perfect. She didn't say great. She just said, "Thank you." And somehow that meant more. It meant she saw my effort, not just my mistakes. When I got home that day, I didn't forget the fear. I remembered it clearly. The dry mouth, the shaking hands, the heavy silence. But I also remembered the ending, the tiny clap, the final sentence. The way I didn't run away. That small, brave part of me. Maybe it was only 1% of me that day, but it was enough to move me forward. That night I wrote about it in my notebook. Today I froze, but I finished. Next time I will freeze less. I didn't promise to be perfect. I promised to try again. The next week I stood up again in class. Not because I wanted to be the best, but because I didn't want fear to win. I read one sentence, just one. It was a little easier. I still made mistakes. My voice was still soft, but my eyes didn't blur this time. I could see, I could breathe, I could choose to continue, and I did. That was the small fire that started that day. A tiny flame of courage, not big enough to burn the fear, but big enough to light the next step. If you have ever frozen like me, if your throat closed, if your mind went empty, if your body wanted to escape, please know this: you are not weak. You are human. You care about your words. You care about being understood. That is why you feel fear. But fear is not the end. It is the beginning of your courage. I learned this in front of a classroom with a small book and shaking hands. I learned it when one clap felt like a gift. I learned it when I sat back down and thought, I can do this again. That day didn't make me a great speaker, but it made me a speaker. And that is how every journey begins, with a voice that is scared but still speaks. Chapter 2. Why public speaking in English feels so scary. Why does it feel so scary to speak English in front of people? Even when you know the words, even when you've practiced, why does your voice shake? Why does your mind suddenly go empty? I used to think I was the only one, but I learned something important. This fear is normal. It's not because you are weak. It's not because your English is bad. It's because speaking in front of others, especially in a second language, touches something deep inside us, a place where we all want one thing: to be accepted. I remember sitting in class, waiting for my turn to speak. My palms were sweaty. My heart was beating too fast. My stomach felt heavy. I looked at my notebook again and again. I knew my sentence. It was only 8 words. But still, I thought, what if I forget it? What if I say it wrong? What if they laugh? These questions played in my mind like a broken song. I smiled on the outside, but inside I was scared, and I didn't know why it felt so big. Now I understand more. When we speak our native language, we don't think too much. Words come naturally. But when we speak English, our brain has to do more work. It listens. It translates. It chooses the right words. It checks grammar. And at the same time, we have to stand in front of people and pretend to be calm. That's a lot for the brain. That's why it feels like pressure. And pressure makes fear louder. Sometimes the fear starts before we even speak. We stand up and suddenly feel small. We hold the paper and feel our hands shake. We hear someone cough or laugh and think it's about us. We become so focused on ourselves, we forget the message. We forget the reason we wanted to speak. That's how fear works. It makes your body react like it's in danger. Your chest tightens, your mouth dries, your mind runs. But the truth is, you're not in danger. You're in a classroom, or a meeting, or a small group, and all you're trying to do is share your voice. Let me tell you a secret that helped me. Your body can trick your brain, and your brain can trick your body. When you breathe deeply, your brain thinks you are safe. So before you speak, take 1 full breath. Hold it for 2 seconds. Let it out slowly. Do it again. You will feel your heart slow down. Your thoughts become clearer. That 1 small breath can change the whole moment. There's another thing I learned. Your body language is like your second voice. If you stand tall, even when you feel small, people will listen. If you smile, even when you're nervous, your brain will feel calmer. I started to practice this before speaking. I looked in the mirror. I stood straight. I smiled. I said my sentences, not fast, not loud, just calm. And something started to change, not outside, but inside. I felt more in control. Sometimes I still hear those questions in my head. What if I make a mistake? What if they don't understand me? And now I answer them. I say, it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes them, even native speakers. It's okay if someone doesn't understand you the first time. You can say it again, slower, or in a different way. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to try. I remember one time during a group discussion, I forgot a word. I froze, but instead of stopping, I used my hands. I pointed. I said, the thing we use to... And someone said the word. Microwave? I smiled. Yes! And we laughed. That moment didn't make me look silly. It made me human. It made me part of the group. That's the spike moment I want you to remember. Fear didn't stop me from speaking, because I was speaking from the heart. I wasn't showing off. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to share my thought, and people felt that. When you speak from the heart, even mistakes can't block your message. Your message will find a way. Through your words, your eyes, your hands, your feeling. If you are afraid of public speaking in English, know this. You are not alone, and you are not broken. You are learning. You are growing. You are stepping into something powerful, and every speaker you admire, every confident English speaker you see, they were once like you, shaking, quiet, unsure, but they didn't stop. They didn't hide. They spoke again, and again, and again. So next time your heart beats fast, remember this chapter. Remember the breath, the smile, the posture. Remember that fear is just a sign you care, and caring is good. It means your voice matters. It means your message is real. Don't let fear take your words. Take a breath. Take your time. Speak your truth. Because even a scared voice can speak strong words. Even a nervous speaker can change a room. Even your broken sentence can build someone's hope. Fear may knock on your door, but you don't have to let it stop you. Speak anyway. Speak slowly. Speak kindly, because your voice matters more than your fear ever will. Chapter 3. One sentence can break the fear. It was a small classroom. Just 7 students, a teacher, and a big whiteboard. The windows were open, but the air still felt heavy. It was speaking day. Everyone had to say something in English. A few lines, maybe just one. Nothing big. But still, my hands were cold. My chest felt tight. My heart thumped like a drum. The teacher smiled and said, "Don't worry. Just say your name. Say one thing you like. That's enough." I nodded. But inside I was nervous. My English was still simple. My confidence was small. I had practiced many times at home. "Hello, my name is Ronnie. I like coffee." Just 8 words. But in that moment, they felt like a mountain. One student spoke, then another. Then the teacher looked at me. "Ronnie, your turn." I looked down at my notebook. The words were there, written clearly, but my eyes felt blurry. My voice wanted to hide. My legs wanted to stay in the chair, but something inside me said, "Stand." And I did. I stood up slowly. I held my notebook tightly. My voice was soft, so soft. But I spoke. "Hello." My throat was dry. I took a breath. "My name is Ronnie." My teacher smiled. I looked at her face and saw kindness. That gave me strength. "I like coffee." I finished. That was it. And something strange happened. The fear, still there, suddenly felt smaller. Not gone, but smaller. Like a wall had a small crack now. A little light was coming through. I sat down, and my hands were still shaking. But inside, something new was growing. It wasn't English grammar. It wasn't vocabulary. It was courage. That one sentence did not make me fluent, but it made me free. Free from silence, free from waiting, free from thinking I wasn't ready. because I saw what could happen when I just said one line. The room didn't break, the students didn't laugh, the teacher didn't scold me. Instead, she said, "Good job." That small sentence became a bridge from fear to hope. That moment became a memory I carry with me even now, because before that day, I thought I needed more words, more grammar, more practice. But after that one line, I understood something powerful. You don't need a full speech. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need big words. You just need a beginning. That's why short sentences are strong. They are the first bricks in the house of confidence. A big speech can wait. But one simple line, that's where your journey starts. The next day, I practiced again. This time I stood in front of the mirror. I said, "Hello, my name is Ronnie. I like coffee." I added a smile. I added hand movement. I said it 10 times. I played with my voice. Soft, loud, slow, clear. It became easier. It became fun. Then I tried more. I live in a small town. I work in a cafe. I like reading. One sentence at a time. Not fast, not perfect, just real. That's how I built my confidence. One sentence each day. A few days later, we had another class activity. This time, we had to read a sentence from the board. Just one line. But now I felt different. Still nervous, but stronger. When it was my turn, I stood up. I looked at the board. My voice shook a little, but I read the sentence, and I finished it. That was the spike moment, the real change. Not because I read a line, but because I saw it through. I didn't quit. I didn't run. I stayed with my fear and I spoke anyway. And that's what I want to share with you. You don't need to speak for 10 minutes. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to say one true sentence. Say it with your voice. Say it with your heart. It might be, "My name is Aisha. I love music." Or, "I live in Brazil. I have a dog." Or even just, "I want to learn English." That's enough. That one sentence is a seed. If you plant it, it will grow, and so will you. So if you're watching this video and thinking, "But I'm scared," I want you to try something. Right now, say one sentence out loud, just one. It can be about your name, your city, your dream. Say it to yourself, or to your phone, or to the mirror. But say it. That small sentence may feel like nothing, but it can change everything, because that's what happened to me. One small line, 8 little words, and my journey began. Chapter 4. Practicing out loud when no one is watching. Some of my biggest steps in English did not happen in class. They did not happen at work, or in front of people. They happened alone, in my room, with a mirror, with a phone, with no one watching. That is where I started to grow. That is where my fear began to shrink. At first, I thought speaking alone was strange. Who talks to a mirror? Who repeats one sentence 10 times with no reply? But then I understood something very important. Practicing alone is not strange. It is not weak. It is powerful. It is where courage begins before it ever shows in front of people. Every morning, before I left for class, I would go to the mirror, just for 1 minute. I would look at myself and say, "Good morning. My name is Ronnie. I like coffee." At first, I couldn't look into my own eyes. It felt silly. But day by day, it felt easier, then stronger, then better. One day, I added more. I said, I am learning English. I want to speak well. I will not stop. I watched my face. I watched my mouth. I saw how my lips moved. I paid attention to the small sounds. Th, V, S. I made faces. I smiled. I practiced. Not for others. For me. Then I tried something new. I took my phone. I opened the voice recorder. I pressed the red button. My hands were shaking. I said, My name is Ronnie. I am practicing my English today. Then I stopped the recording. I listened. My first thought, is that really my voice? My second thought, that doesn't sound so bad. That was my spike moment. I had always been scared of how I sounded. I thought my accent was strange. I thought my sentences were too slow. But now I heard my own voice, and I didn't hate it. I liked it. Not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. It was trying. It was growing. That one recording changed how I saw myself. It made me want to record more. So I did. Every day I picked a short text, an easy poem, a short paragraph, or a dialogue from our English book. I read it out loud. I recorded. I listened. I smiled. Sometimes I heard mistakes. Sometimes I repeated a sentence 5 times, but I didn't stop. I was building something, word by word, voice by voice. Then I tried something fun. I pretended I was on stage. I stood in front of the mirror. I imagined an audience. I said, Good evening. Thank you for coming. I pretended I was giving a speech. I talked about food. I talked about my family. I talked about anything. It wasn't real, but it felt real. And it helped me so much. One evening I practiced introducing myself 10 times. Hello, my name is Ronnie. I am from a small town. I work in a cafe. I like reading and learning English. Each time I changed my tone. One soft, one slow, one like I was meeting a friend, one like I was meeting a teacher. I tried different styles. I became more comfortable. I found my voice. And then something unexpected happened. In class, when the teacher said, Please introduce yourself, I stood up without fear. I had said those words 100 times already. In my room, with my phone, with the mirror. My voice was ready. My words were ready. I was ready. No one saw the hours I practiced alone. No one saw the silly faces I made, the retakes, the laughter, the mistakes. But I saw them. I felt them, and they changed me. That's the secret I want to share with you. You don't need an audience to become a speaker. You don't need a teacher to find your voice. You just need a quiet space, a little time, and the courage to begin. Practice out loud when no one is watching. Talk to yourself. Record your voice. Read stories. Pretend you're giving a speech. Say good morning to your reflection. It's not silly. It's smart. It works. And one day, when you speak in front of people, they'll wonder how you became so confident. They won't know about the quiet hours, the mirror talks, the late-night recordings. But you will, and you'll smile, because you'll know. The stage is not where confidence begins. Confidence begins when you speak your truth in silence, when you find your voice in the quiet. And when no one is watching, that's when the real magic happens. Chapter 5. My first group speaking challenge. It was a Thursday morning when our teacher made the announcement. Next week, she said, each group will give a short English presentation. My heart sank. I felt my stomach turn. A group presentation, in English, in front of the whole class? I looked around. Some students were excited. Some looked nervous like me. I sat quietly, trying to breathe. Then the teacher said, "Ronnie, you will be in group 3. I nodded, but my hands were cold. That whole day I kept thinking, can I do this? Can I really speak in front of everyone? That evening, I couldn't eat properly. I sat with my notebook writing down ideas. Our topic was simple, my favorite place. I chose the cafe where I worked. I wrote 3 short lines. My favorite place is a small cafe. I work there. I enjoy making coffee for customers. That was it. But even those 3 lines felt heavy. The next day, our group met to prepare. There were 4 of us. One girl spoke fast. Another boy was shy like me. We shared our lines. We helped each other. We practiced, slowly, gently. I memorized my part. I stood up and said it aloud 5 times. I timed myself. I breathed deeply. I didn't want to freeze like I had in the past. The night before the presentation, I stood in front of the mirror and gave my speech again. I smiled at my reflection. I imagined my classmates. I practiced looking at one friendly face. I chose my friend Sarah. She always smiled when I spoke. I told myself, if I get nervous, I'll look at Sarah. Finally, the day came. Presentation day. The classroom was quiet. Chairs were moved. Students sat in rows. The teacher smiled. Group 1 stood up. They spoke well. Group 2 followed. Some made mistakes. Some forgot lines. But the class clapped for everyone. That made me feel a little better. Then it was our turn. Group 3, my group. We walked to the front. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I held my paper tightly, but I didn't look at it. I had practiced. I knew my lines. The first student spoke, then the second. Then it was my turn. I took 1 step forward. I looked at Sarah. She smiled. That gave me strength. I opened my mouth and said, "My favorite place is a small cafe." My voice was soft, but I said it. I work there. Then suddenly, blank. I forgot the next line. Everything froze for 1 second. My brain shouted, "Say something." I looked down, but didn't panic. I smiled. A real smile. Then I took a small breath and said, "I enjoy making coffee and talking to customers." It wasn't the exact line I had written, but it was real. It was English. It was enough. The group finished. We all stood together. The class clapped. My teacher nodded. She said, "Well done, Group 3." And that's when I felt it, that beautiful feeling, relief, pride, joy. That moment when I forgot a line, smiled, and continued, that was the spike. That was the turning point. I learned something huge that day. Mistakes are not the end. They're just part of the show. No one laughed at me. No one said, "You're wrong." In fact, after class, someone came and said, You looked so calm. I laughed and said, I forgot a line. She said, Really? I didn't notice. That's when I understood. When you stay calm, when you smile, when you keep going, people don't remember your mistake. They remember your message. After that, I started looking forward to group activities. I didn't run away from speaking. I faced it. Slowly, one word at a time. Later, I even helped a shy classmate practice her lines. I told her, just pick one face, smile, breathe. If you forget, just speak from your heart. Now I want to tell you the same. You don't need perfect memory. You don't need perfect grammar. You just need to show up, to speak, to try. Even if your hands shake, even if your voice is soft, even if you forget a line, because your words still matter, your courage still shines. Mistakes are not a stop sign. They're just part of the path. They mean you're trying. They mean you're growing. And one day when someone claps for you, not because you were perfect, but because you were brave, you'll feel what I felt that day. Proud, free, alive. Because one group challenge can do more than test your memory. It can teach you how strong you really are. Chapter 6. Learning from people who speak well. After my first group presentation, I felt proud, but I also felt curious. I started to ask myself, how do good speakers become good? They looked so calm. Their words sounded smooth. Their voices were strong. I wanted to speak like that too. I knew I had a long way to go, but I also knew one thing. If I wanted to speak better, I needed to learn from those who already did. So I began a new habit. Every evening, I opened my phone and searched for English speakers. I watched TED Talks, short YouTube speeches, and interviews. At first, I just listened. I tried to understand the words, but soon I started to notice something more than just vocabulary. I saw how they stood, how they breathed, how they smiled, how they paused. One speaker talked slowly but clearly. His words were simple, but his message was strong. Another speaker laughed when she made a mistake. She didn't hide. She kept going. That gave me courage. I saw that even confident speakers were not perfect. They were human, just like me. I started watching the same video again and again. Not to copy the ideas, but to copy the feeling, the rhythm, the movement, the heart behind the words. I chose one short speech, just an introduction from a young woman who was learning English like me. She said, "Hi, everyone. My name is Lila. I'm from Indonesia. I used to be shy, but now I speak English with joy." That sentence touched me. It was simple, but strong, so I made a plan. I wrote her sentence on a piece of paper and stuck it on my wall. Every morning I stood in front of it and said the words. I practiced her voice, her tone, her smile. I said it slowly, clearly, with feeling. Hi, everyone. My name is Ronnie. I'm from India. I used to be shy, but now I speak English with joy. I changed the name. I made it mine. I said that sentence 10 times a day for 1 week. Each time it became easier. Each time it became stronger. Then, one day, something strange happened. I said it out loud, and it didn't feel like someone else's words anymore. It felt like me, my voice, my truth. my story. That was the spike moment. That sentence was no longer practice. It was real. It was mine. That's when I realized the power of watching and learning from others. Good speakers are not just people to admire. They are people to learn from, to practice with, to copy, not to become them, but to become yourself. I kept going. I made a playlist of my favorite speakers. Some were famous, some were just English learners like me. I didn't care about big names. I cared about real voices, honest stories, simple words with big hearts. Every time I watched a new video, I asked myself, how do they start their talk? Where do they pause? How do they show confidence with their body? What do they do when they forget a word? Then I tried it myself. I stood in front of the mirror. I repeated their lines. I moved like them. I smiled like them. I made mistakes like them. And I laughed like them too. I even recorded short practice videos. I pretended I was giving a TED Talk. I said, "Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening." I talked about my cafe, my English class, my dreams. It felt funny at first, but slowly it became a habit, a joyful habit. One of my teachers once said, "Good speaking is not about showing off. It's about showing up." And that's what these speakers did. They showed up with their accents, with their fears, with their stories, and I wanted to be like that. Not perfect, just present, not loud, just real, not fast, just clear. That's what I learned from people who speak well. So if you want to speak English better, start watching. Start listening. Find someone who speaks like you want to. Watch them closely. Don't just hear their words. Feel their message. Practice it. Play with it. Say it until it becomes your own. Because when you learn from others, you build yourself. You grow. You change. You find your style. You find your voice. And one day, someone may watch you and say, "I want to speak like that." And that will be the day you realize you've become the one who inspires. Chapter 7. Small Talks, Big Confidence. It was a normal afternoon. The sky was clear. I had just finished class and was walking home. On the way, I stopped at a small tea stall near the corner. I always liked that place. It was simple, just a wooden bench, a tin roof, and the smell of fresh cardamom tea. I ordered my usual and stood to the side, waiting. Then, a man walked up. He looked at me and smiled. "Where are you from?" he asked. I was surprised. His voice was gentle, and his English was clear. For a second, I froze. Then I remembered everything I had been practicing, my mirror talks, my recorded sentences, my one-line introductions. I took a breath and said, "I'm from here, from this town." He smiled again. "Oh, I'm visiting. First time in India. Beautiful place." I nodded. "Yes, very warm, and the tea is nice too." He laughed. We stood there, two strangers holding hot cups, talking in English. It was not a long talk, maybe 2 minutes, but it was real. It was not a class exercise. It was not a test. It was life. I don't remember every word we said, but I do remember the feeling. I felt calm. I felt seen. I felt like a real English speaker. Not because I was perfect. I wasn't. I made small grammar mistakes. I used simple words. But I didn't stop. I didn't translate in my head. I just spoke. And then came the spike moment. He looked at me and said, "Your English is good." I had heard those words before, but this time I believed them. I smiled. Not the shy kind, the real kind. I said, "Thank you. I'm learning." He nodded. "You're doing great." That sentence stayed with me all day, not because of the grammar, but because of the feeling, the belief. I walked home slowly, thinking about that small talk. It was short. It was simple. But it gave me something bigger than any textbook ever did. It gave me confidence. That's when I realized small talks are not small at all. They are powerful. They are your best training ground. Every time you speak English at work, in shops, with strangers, you are growing. You don't need a stage. You don't need an exam. You just need a moment. The next day, I looked for more of those moments. At the cafe where I worked, I started saying, "Good morning," and "How are you?" to every customer. I asked, "Would you like sugar?" even when I already knew the answer. I spoke not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Sometimes people replied in fast English. I didn't catch every word, but I smiled and said, "Can you say that slowly, please?" And they did. Most people are kind when you try. They want to understand you. They want you to succeed. One afternoon, I was at the grocery store. The man in line behind me dropped his basket. I helped him pick it up and said, "You okay?" He looked surprised, then smiled. "Yes, thank you." Another small talk. Another small win. At first, these moments were hard. My voice was low. My words were few. But over time, they became part of my day, like brushing my teeth, like locking the door, like tying my shoes. I didn't think about them. I just did them. And every time I finished one small conversation, I felt stronger. Not because I used new words, but because I used my words, my voice, my effort. I wrote about these small talks in my notebook, one line each. Tea stall. Where are you from? Cafe. Would you like sugar? Grocery. You okay? I called this section My Confidence Collection, and it grew, day by day. Now, I want to tell you something from my heart. You don't need long speeches. You don't need perfect grammar. You just need small talks. Say hello to the delivery guy. Say thank you to the driver. Ask, "How was your day?" to a coworker. It's not just practice. It's power. It's progress. Because when someone says, "Your English is good," and you finally believe it, that's not the end of your journey. That's the beginning of your new self, your confident self, your real, everyday, English-speaking self. And it all starts with one small cup of tea and one simple question. Where are you from? Chapter 8. Turning Mistakes into Moments. One of the biggest fears we all have when speaking English is this: what if I make a mistake? And the truth is, you will. I did. Many times. But what I want to share with you today is something that changed how I see those mistakes. I don't see them as failure anymore. I see them as funny stories, as warm memories, as lessons. Let me tell you about one of my favorite ones. It happened at the cafe where I worked. It was a busy afternoon. About 15 customers were sitting at the tables, enjoying tea and sandwiches. Some tourists were there too, speaking in English. One man came to the counter and smiled at me. He said, "Hello? What's on your menu today?" I smiled back, proud to use my English. I had practiced my sentences. I looked at the menu board and said with confidence, "Today we have egg sandwich, cheese toast, and spicy kitchen." The moment I said the word, I saw it on his face. He looked confused. Then he laughed, just a little. Then others around him laughed too. One of the regulars said, "Did you mean chicken?" I froze for a second. My face got warm. But then I smiled too. I laughed. I put my hand on my head and said, "Yes, chicken, not kitchen, unless you want to eat furniture." Everyone laughed. And that was the spike moment. I didn't hide. I didn't run. I made a joke, in English, and something magical happened. The mistake became a moment, not a moment of shame, a moment of joy, connection, real human conversation. That day I learned something I will never forget. Mistakes are not the enemy. Silence is. When you speak, you grow. When you make mistakes, you remember. After that, I wasn't so afraid anymore. I still made small mistakes, but I stopped fearing them. I started saying, "Oops, I'm still learning." And people understood. They smiled. They waited. They helped. No one was angry. No one laughed to hurt me. In fact, that one mistake taught me more than 10 grammar books. Because now, every time I said chicken, I smiled inside. I remembered that story, that feeling, that growth. Sometimes I wrote my mistakes in a special notebook. I called it Funny English. I wrote kitchen instead of chicken. I am boring instead of I am bored. She's my uncle instead of she's my aunt. Each mistake had a story, and each story had a smile. That notebook became very special to me. It was not full of errors. It was full of progress. Proof that I was trying. Proof that I was speaking. Proof that I was learning. By doing. I also started to use one powerful sentence when I messed up. I'd say, "Sorry, I'm still learning." That one sentence saved me many times. It showed honesty. It showed effort. It showed heart. And most people responded with kindness. I remember another day I was trying to say, "I will bring your change," but I said, "I will bring your chance." The man looked confused, then laughed. "Okay, bring me luck too," he said. I laughed and said, "Only change, sir, but maybe a little luck too." These little moments made my English real, alive, human. And here's what I want you to know. You don't need to fear mistakes. You need to welcome them. They are signs that you are speaking. They are steps on your journey. They are your stories in the making. So next time you mix up a word, laugh, smile. Say, "Oops, I'm still learning." Then keep going. Speak the next word. Tell the next sentence. Let the moment pass and grow from it. Because when you turn mistakes into moments, You turn fear into freedom. You don't just become a better speaker, you become a braver one. And that's something no grammar rule can teach. Mistakes are not walls, they are windows. Windows to laughter, to memory, to confidence. So speak, mess up, smile, because your next mistake might just become your best story. Chapter 9. My first big speech in English. It was a Friday afternoon when my English teacher called my name. "Ronnie," she said with a smile, "you will speak at next week's school event. Just a short speech. 5 sentences. You can do it." I nodded. I smiled. But inside, I was shaking. A speech? With a microphone? In front of the whole school? I had never done something that big before. Speaking English to one person was hard. Speaking to 5 people was brave. But speaking to an entire room with lights, chairs, claps, and silence felt impossible. That evening, I sat at my desk and looked at the blank paper. My heart was loud, my hands were still. But I told myself, you've done small talks, you've made mistakes, you've laughed, you've grown. Now it's time to stand tall. I wrote my speech slowly. It was simple, but it was real. I didn't try to use big words. I used words that felt like mine. Here is what I wrote. "Hello. My name is Ronnie. I used to be afraid of English, but now I speak with courage. I'm still learning, but I will never stop." 5 lines. That's all. But to me, it felt like 5 mountains. I practiced every day, in the mirror, in the kitchen, while walking. I whispered the words while brushing my teeth. I spoke them out loud in the shower. I said them while looking at the ceiling before bed. I imagined the room, the audience, the microphone, the silence before I started, the claps at the end. One night before the event, I stood in front of my sister. "Pretend to be the audience," I told her. She smiled. I spoke. She clapped. I felt ready. Then came the big day. I wore my best shirt. I combed my hair twice. I held my small paper in my hand, even though I already knew every word. I walked into the school hall. My legs felt heavy, but my heart had a quiet fire inside. When it was my turn, I stood and walked to the front. The microphone waited. I looked at the crowd, teachers, students, even a few parents. I felt the same old fear start to rise, but I took one deep breath, and I began. "Hello. My name is Ronnie. I used to be afraid of English." Then it happened. I forgot the next line. For 1 second, the world stopped. The microphone was quiet. The room was quiet. My paper was in my pocket, but I didn't reach for it. I looked at the faces in front of me. No one looked angry. No one laughed. They were waiting. They were with me. So I smiled. Just a small, honest smile. Then I remembered. But now I speak with courage. I'm still learning, but I will never stop. I finished. And the clapping began. It wasn't loud, it wasn't fast, but it was full of warmth. It filled the room, it filled me. The applause wasn't for 5 perfect sentences. It was for the courage, for the journey, for showing up, for standing there with a shaky voice, and still speaking. That moment was more than just a speech. It was a mirror. I saw my growth. I saw my old fear sitting in the corner, silent now. I saw the new version of me, braver, stronger, more open. After the event, a younger student came to me and said, "Your speech was good." I smiled. "Thank you." He looked at me again and whispered, "I'm scared to speak too." I bent down and said, "You can do it. Start with one sentence, then keep going. Even if you forget, keep going." He nodded. And in that moment, I realized something big. My words didn't just help me. They helped someone else too. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real purpose of speaking. Not to show off, but to show others that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to forget. It's okay to be human. Because courage doesn't mean you don't fear. Courage means you speak anyway, even if your hands shake, even if your voice breaks, even if your memory fails. So if you ever have to give a speech in English, no matter how short, remember this. Write your truth. Practice with heart. Breathe when it's hard. Smile when you're stuck. And speak, because in the end, people won't remember your grammar. They'll remember your courage. They'll remember your story. And maybe your voice will give them theirs. Chapter 10. Speaking without fear. Only heart. I want to tell you something simple, something honest. I used to hide. I used to avoid every chance to speak English in front of people. I would pretend I didn't hear the question. I would say, "I don't know." Not because I didn't have the words, but because I didn't have the courage. But now, I speak. Not fast, not perfect, but clear, with heart. This didn't happen in one day. It didn't happen because I read a grammar book or memorized 100 new words. It happened slowly, one word at a time, one sentence at a time, one mistake, one lesson, one little success at a time. Now, when I speak in public, even if it's just 2 people listening, I don't feel the fear I used to. Do I still get nervous sometimes? Yes. But fear doesn't control me anymore. It walks beside me. And I walk anyway. One day, after a small event, someone came up to me. She was younger, holding her notebook tightly. Her eyes were wide. She said, "How are you so confident?" I smiled. I took a deep breath, and I gave her the truth. Because I started scared, but I never stopped. That was my spike moment. I heard my own answer, and I felt the truth of it. That's all confidence really is. Not magic, not talent, just action, just not stopping. You see, public speaking in English, it's not really about the public. It's not even about the English. It's about expression. It's about connection. It's about belief. Belief in your voice. Belief in your story. Belief that your words, even if simple, can reach someone. When I speak now, I think less about grammar and more about people. Who am I talking to? What do I want to share with them? How can I make them feel something? Because when you speak from your heart, people don't care if your verbs are right. They care if your message is real. I once gave a short talk about my hometown. I described the river, the market, the smell of tea in the evening. My words were not fancy, but someone in the audience said, I felt like I was there. That meant more to me than 100 grammar checks. And that's what I want for you. Don't wait to be fearless. Don't wait to be perfect. Just speak. Speak about what matters to you. Speak about your family, your job, your dreams, your story. Speak slowly. Speak clearly. Speak like you're talking to a friend. Because the goal is not to impress people. The goal is to connect with them, to let them see you, to let them hear you. And when you do that, you will feel something powerful. Not just confidence, but peace, pride, joy. The kind of joy that comes when you finally stop hiding and you step into the light of your own voice. So if you've made it this far in this video, I want to say this to you. You are ready. Even if you feel afraid, even if you think your English is not good enough, it is. Because your words are not just sounds, they are pieces of your heart. And when you speak with heart, you speak with power. Not loud power, not big power, but true power. The kind that helps someone say, if they can speak, maybe I can too. That's what you're building, not just your English, but your voice, your story, your courage. And one day, someone will ask you, how are you so confident? And you'll smile just like I did. And you'll say, because I started scared, but I never stopped. Now you've heard my journey, my fear, my freeze, my voice, my victory. If even one part gave you hope or courage, please do these 4 small things. Like this video. Comment and tell me, what scares you most about speaking English in public? Subscribe to my channel for more real, warm, beginner-friendly stories like this. Share this video with someone who wants to speak, but is still waiting. And remember, you don't need to speak loud. You don't need to speak perfect. You just need to speak with heart. That's how fear ends. That's how confidence begins.